What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. I'm kicking off the Steelers offseason 2024 coverage today. I'm going to be bringing you guys a bunch of coverage all offseason long. We're going to be doing draft stuff, draft previews, free agency previews, top targets, guys we should keep, guys we should cut, changes to make, things to rely on, all kinds of videos all offseason long, just like I do every offseason, as long as you guys keep watching them. But today I wanted to kind of look at a brief overview of the offense, and I'll do defense next week probably, but I'm going to look at the offense really quickly and just kind of locate the biggest holes. And I want to talk about some of the areas of need that we have the most, and kind of talk about how Mike Tomlin's conference kind of gave me a little bit of ease, right? So Pittsburgh, we've been kind of in this bad place where we should have been a much better team. I came in predicting 11 wins this season. We wound up with 10, just one game back. But the offense was so sluggish, and we had so many injuries. And the quarterback controversy and everything here in Pittsburgh, it was such a sluggish part of the season, losing to the Cardinals, losing to the Patriots, losing to the Colts, back to back to back, taking ourselves from potentially going for a first seed in the AFC all the way out of the playoffs and then back into the playoffs, and then relying on Mason Rudolph and having to rely on other teams to win to get us in, and then getting beaten in the playoffs, once again, losing our last 5 playoff games and allowing so many points. There are a lot of things in this team that are not resonating well with the fans. So I wanted to break down kind of section by section, look at the offense and how we can get better. So coming into that press conference, there were a couple things that I was looking for that I wanted to be satiated by. And a couple things Mike Tomlin said are things that I think he was pointing his vitriol or his concern in the right direction. He talked about 2 key things in that season-ending press conference. He talked about quarterback, and he talked about offensive coordinator. Those, to me, are the 2 biggest glaring holes on this offense, or the 2 biggest questions, I should say. So obviously our 2-man tandem of interim offensive coordinators, one was a play caller, one was the actual coordinator, they're not going to come back. They're not going to be here. Tomlin said he appreciated them, but he's looking outside for a new coordinator, which is what we need. Obviously, Matt Canada wasn't the answer. Firing him was the biggest positive at that spot all year. The guys we had interimly were still calling Matt Canada's plays. They weren't going to design a brand new offense with 5 weeks to go in the season or whatever. So bringing in a new coordinator and getting the right fit to see what we have on our roster and to get the guy that can bring the most out of our roster is the most important thing we can do. Now, I'm going to do individual videos on these positions, so I'm not going to break down all of the tenured coaches and possible hires and fits right now, but I will give you guys 4 names that I've been looking at as potential offensive coordinator fits that have been talked about a lot, who I think could maximize the talent on our offense, because I don't think there's any doubting that looking at the roster and looking at the talent on this roster and seeing kind of what they can be at their best, that a lot of these guys are great. We have some very good talent on this roster, but we need the right guys to bring them out. And those right guys being an offensive coordinator and the right quarterback. So, offensive coordinator-wise, I was looking at 4 guys. And again, I'm not going to break down their entire profiles right now. That'll be for a different video. But the 4 guys that I wrote down as really good potential hires are Byron Leftwich, who obviously, did some coaching in Tampa, coached elsewhere also, is a former Pittsburgh Steelers backup quarterback, knows the system, really intelligent quarterback. Eric Bieniemy, who was a return guy for the Bengals for a long time, but has coached most notably in KC with Patrick Mahomes, coaching the offensive side of the ball in KC. Clint Kubiak, who coached for the 49ers and has done really good things with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who is now one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And Shane Waldron, who was the Seattle Seahawks quarterback who brought back their quarterback that I can't think of his name right now, Geno Smith. Brought back Geno Smith back into relevancy and made him an all-pro guy after several years of being nearly out of the league. Now, there are going to be other guys who become available going forward. There are going to be other guys that I've missed on this list. People have talked about Todd Haley. I don't know about bringing him back. I'm not sure about that call. But yeah, Byron Leftwich, Eric Bieniemy, Clint Kubiak, Shane Waldron, those 4 guys are 4 main guys to look at who I think could really maximize our potential on offense. Now, quarterbacks-wise, I didn't write down any names. We know the Pittsburgh Steelers, our organization, really wants to have 2 particular guys back on the roster this year. We know Mike Tomlin has said this is going to be Kenny Pickett's starting job starting next season. He's going to be taking the Team 1 reps. He has resumed his role as the starter, is what Tomlin said. Now, Tomlin also said that this is a very big year for Kenny Pickett to see what the future holds, and it's going to be a quarterback competition. He is open to all forms of competition, and that is what you want to hear. Yes, you don't want to give up on Kenny Pickett entirely yet. He only has been in the league for 2 seasons. I was not really a fan of his in college to be an NFL drafted quarterback. I was not a fan of the Steelers picking him in the first round. I didn't like the fit. But Kenny Pickett did come on in the second half of last season, not this past one, but his rookie year. Came in at 7-1 in his last 8 starts. He had 2 game-winning drives against the Raiders and the Ravens. He was starting to look downfield more. His progressions in the middle of the field were getting better. He was relying less on his feet and picking the right moments to run, going past first. He was progressing a lot in the second half of season 1. He also came out with the first team in the preseason this year and went, 7 for 7? 7 drives, 7 touchdowns or something like that? Could not get any better as far as a preseason offense goes. Playing mostly against first teamers, some second teamers, whatever. But couldn't have been, had a really promising second half of his rookie year and couldn't have been any better in his preseason this year. Then came out and regressed big time. Started to look very antsy on his feet. He wasn't setting his feet well. He wasn't making really good reads. He was going to one read and out. He was looking very inaccurate. He was looking nervous. He went backwards big time this year. That being said, he has shown with his feet and his arm that while he's not the strongest or the most accurate arm, he has moments of clutch in the fourth quarter. He has moments of being able to make some pretty solid mid-range throws with a strong enough arm for mid-range. He's shown some good things. So I wouldn't entirely scrap that because they did select him in the first round when I wouldn't have, but they did. So you want to give your quarterback more time here in this third season to see what he can do. That said, if you find a better quarterback option immediately, replace him. Go ahead, make him the backup and let him sit here for his rookie contract or trade him or whatever you can do. But if you find a clearly better option all around, you go with it. That said, Mason Rudolph came in this year in the last 4 games, led us to 3 regular season wins and 2 of the better offensive performances of the entire season. 2 performances where one, he had over 400 yards and 31 points total offense. And the second game, he had, 396 yards total offense and 31 points. And then the Ravens game was that crazy rain game with all the fumbles and everything, but led us to a victory to get us into the playoffs. And then, had the Bills playoff game, which was really cold and didn't look amazing, but didn't look terrible, was just kind of there, right? So leads us to 3 consecutive victories to end the season and takes our offense much improved from where it has been for the past several years. That being said, is Mason Rudolph the savior now, right? Because all the Pittsburgh groups and everything, all the fans are going, oh, Mason was ill-funded and ill-served by this team. The organization didn't give him a chance, all this and this. They did give him a chance. He was a third-round quarterback. He played in preseasons a lot, didn't show us a whole lot of progression, showed us a really good deep ball, but didn't show us he could throw other reads. Came in when Ben got hurt that one season, and it cost us a lot of games we should have won. Played really badly, in my opinion. Got benched by the third or fourth string, Duck Hodges, the undrafted free agent, who came in, and then Duck played so bad eventually that Mason got his job back. But Mason never really looked good until this year. And that being said, is Mason the franchise quarterback? I don't know. I don't know that he is. But I will say this. He was exponentially better than the 2 guys on this roster this year. Mitch Trubisky showed that his time in Pittsburgh is done. He was horrible. He was 2-6. He couldn't have looked much worse. Kenny Pickett, again, started his career off kind of rough, got better in the end of his first half of the season, got better in preseason this year, and then got much worse in the half a season he played this year. So, is Rudolph right now better than Trubisky and Pickett? Yes, he is. Did Rudolph improve a lot this 4-game stretch compared to what he was in previous starts? Yes, exponentially. I give Rudolph a lot of credit. He's always had a strong arm, he's always had the best deep ball, and he's always been the quarterback most likely to take shots downfield. His arm strength and his ability to take shots are the best. His deep ball on the team is by far the best. Has he improved on the bench? Yes, he's gotten much better than he was before. I have more faith in him now than I ever have before. That being said, is this coming into the season third-string quarterback who couldn't even sign another deal to be a backup anywhere else, who we didn't want to come back on the team last year and didn't want to come back, but he couldn't even sign anywhere else? Is this guy who was barely worthy of being a backup quarterback up until this season when our other guys failed us? Is he the guy? Can we really say that off 3 games, one of which was an ugly Storm game? After 2 great performances against a really bad Bengals defense. And who was the other defense? Seattle, who's hit or miss. So, an average Seattle defense and a bad Bengals defense, to have those two great games. Is that enough for him to be a franchise quarterback? I don't necessarily think so. That being said, is somebody going to give this guy a shot to come in and be a backup or a starter somewhere else? And should we give him that same chance here? Yes, we should. There should be a quarterback competition at the very least, where I think as of right now, they're going to start next season with Kenny being listed as QB1. I think Mason should stay here if he gets re-signed to a contract. He's a free agent. The players say they want him back. Tomlin has said he would like him back, but he's a free agent. We want to see him come back. And as of right now, if he's going to come back, he would be my quarterback one. He would be the best quarterback on the roster. That being said, is it enough to be very comfortable that Mason is your quarterback one? Or Kenny's your quarterback one? Either one. I wouldn't feel comfortable right now at this point in either one, although Mason is the better of the two currently. Trubisky should be cut and likely will be cut. He's going to be off the team. But we need to also, again, Tomlin said he's going to look everywhere for quarterbacks, and that makes me happy. It makes me happy that he acknowledges Kenny was a first-round pick, but he also acknowledges this year is a make-or-break year for Kenny, and that he acknowledges that Mason played well, and that he acknowledges that he wants another quarterback on the roster. So those things make me happy. And we should be looking at, I would say, veterans more than draft guys, because we're drafting at like pick 20. We're always drafting between 17th and 22nd because we're always 9 wins, 10 wins. So we're not drafting super, super high. So you're not going to get a top 3 quarterback. And beyond that, a lot of these quarterbacks don't pan out. Now, can you catch somebody like a Brock Purdy in late rounds? Can you find yourself a serviceable guy? Absolutely. But I think right now you want at least one guy on the roster, especially if you're cutting the veteran Trubisky, which you should. You want one guy on the roster who's going to be a veteran guy who can step in if there's injuries or if our quarterbacks just don't play well. Then you can bring a Jacoby Brissett. Someone like a Brissett you want to bring in and trust. A Gardner Minshew for the Colts, a guy who can get you to an 8-8 kind of a team. You want somebody in there who you can trust to win you some games. Who's the Washington quarterback? Not Sam Howell, but the guy that came in and played a little bit better. I forget his name right now. There's also the guy in Atlanta who came in and played a little bit better than Desmond Ridder. You have some guys who are average quarterbacks who are nothing special. They're going to get some turnovers. They're not going to be franchise guys, but they're veteran guys who have been around for a while and can bridge the gap for a while until you find your franchise guy. I don't want to sit in the bridge for too long. We're already in year 3. We have not had consistent, reliable quarterback play since Ben retired. And even in Ben's last season when he was too old, we have not played well in offense now for 3 years. Mason Rudolph's 3 games in the regular season have been the best we've seen so far. So I think coming in with Kenny, with Mason, and with a veteran quarterback is going to be your best bet with an open competition. Even if you wind up drafting somebody in the late rounds as a 4th quarterback and have all 4 of those guys compete. But I would like to bring somebody in. Trading for Justin Fields has been what everyone's talked about. That is not realistic. The Bears are going to try to trade him for the farm. They're going to be trying to get 2nd, 3rd round picks. We shouldn't be trading those away for Justin Fields. Yes, Justin Fields is an incredible athlete, and yes, he's got a strong arm. But his arm is very inconsistent, his reads are not very good, and he's very inaccurate. He's about as inaccurate as Kenny Pickett is. He's slightly better, accuracy-wise, and he's much better as an athlete. Yeah, he's going to get you some crazy runs and break some tackles and extend some plays. And yeah, he's going to get you some good deep bombs. But, again, inconsistent arm, bad decision-making, very inaccurate. So I don't think Justin Fields is all that much better than what we currently have on the roster. I would trust right now, at this point in my career, in terms of a quarterback, in terms of a passing quarterback, which is what fits our system, I would trust Mason Rudolph right now more than I would trust Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to get you the bigger, more electrifying plays and do more with his feet. Mason has a more accurate overall arm, even though he can't throw a lot of the routes. He's more of a deep ball guy like Justin Fields is. He can't throw a lot of the routes downfield yet either, but he's shown improvement more so than Justin Fields in relation to his arm. So right now, trading for a blockbuster quarterback ain't going to happen. And you see what happens when you try and trade for a Deshaun Watson and you give everything up and you wind up still not being great. So right now, I would look for a veteran quarterback who can bridge your gap along with your slightly proven Mason Rudolph after a couple games and your Kenny Pickett. Now, the other thing I would look at for offense, I'm just going to say this now. In terms of running back, I like our 1-2 punch. We've seen what can happen Jaylen Warren has looked explosive and been a big broken tackle guy and been a big pass-catching guy. Najee has caught some passes out of the backfield, and since like week 7 or so, has run very hard, got another 1,000-yard season. He looked really good toward the end of the year. So I think both Najee and Warren are both NFL starting caliber running backs. Yes, there's times that Warren's look better than Najee, but Najee also looked better than Warren toward the end of the season. Warren's the more explosive running back that can break more tackles. Najee's your straight ahead guy that when he falls forward, he gets some good quality runs. Keep those two guys as your running backs. I feel good about that. Wide receivers, I feel good about our two main guys being George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Yes, Pickens gets a lot of crap for his attitude. Yes, Deontay gets a lot of crap for drop balls. But we've seen both be multiple 100-yard game guys. The thing they need to both work on is consistency. George Pickens didn't get a lot of targets in those last 2 games of the year, but he had those, 3 catches for, I think he wound up with like over 300 yards in the first 2 games that Mason started, those 2 electrifying games we had on offense. That was Pickens over 300 yards and several touchdowns. George Pickens was the deep threat in the NFL for a couple weeks there. Deontay is one of the best route runners in the league. His footwork is great. His speed is great. And when he is consistent catching the ball, he can be an elite receiver. Both these guys have elite potential, and they have not put it together consistently, nor have they done it together in the same game very often. I think only like twice this year were both guys over like 70 yards receiving together. Usually it's one or the other. Get those guys more opportunities. Calvin Austin has not been used nearly enough as a wide receiver. I think he only had 2 touchdowns receiving this year. He had the one deep ball against, I forget what team it was, but he had the one deep ball where he got wide open down the field, caught it and ran in like one game, and then he had the one playoff touchdown. But he's carved a niche as far as the, they don't do enough screen stuff with him, but he does a lot of the handoffs from under center. He takes a lot of jet sweep things and makes them work. So he's fast. He's got a niche. I still want to see more targets, more routes, and more deep shots for him. But I like him being a 3/4 receiver to go with our 2 All-Stars. I also like Allen Robinson. He didn't play a ton this year, didn't get nearly the amount of reps I thought he would. But caught a couple nice third down balls in the middle of the field, is a sure-handed guy. Obviously, his age has slowed him down. Obviously, he got hurt at the end of the season. He doesn't have a ton left in him. He's not going to be the player he was in Jacksonville or Chicago, but he's a good, solid 3/4. If he's too hurt, if his contract's too big, and you want to go get yourself another 3/4 veteran guy to go along with Calvin Austin while you start Deontay and Pickens, that's fine, but I like our receivers here. Tight end-wise, Pat Freiermuth, I think he needs to be used much more. I think he is as good as a TJ Hawkinson when he was in Detroit. He's now in Minnesota. He's still decent, but not quite as targeted. The Detroit Lions tight end, the rookie they got this year, he very much is. I think Freiermuth is a better overall player, but the Lions tight end is phenomenal. What a great rookie year for him, and he got targeted very well downfield. Strong hands, solid route runner for a guy his size, solid speed for a guy his size. I think Freiermuth is as good or better than that guy, and I think Freiermuth needs those kind of targets. Use him like the Detroit Lions tight end. I really, really like what they've done with him, and I hope Freiermuth gets those opportunities. And I like Washington being the big athletic blocker that gets the occasional play downfield. Get that guy a few more opportunities downfield, being so big and tall, especially in the red zone. But I like Washington as our number 2, and Connor Hayward being our part-time fullback, part-time halfback, part-time tight end is an everything guy. Get that guy more targets, but I like him there. So again, receivers and tight ends and halfbacks, I like this team. The other place besides offensive coordinator and quarterback that I would look is offensive line. The 2 spots we have right now that are our weakest are Mason Cole and Dan Moore Jr. And Dan Moore didn't play terribly this year, got better in the second half. Mason Cole as a blocker is not terrible, but as a center he is. You want to get a new center because Mason Cole, while being a solid blocker, he could start somewhere else on the line, but especially be a very good, valuable bench guy, like a bench guard, I think, like a next guard in line. But as a center, he's not it. Bad center this year. We got to fix that. Dan Moore, while not a terrible season, is our weakest link by far on the offensive line. I would definitely keep Sayamalu, Daniels, and Broderick Jones, who looked really good since Broderick started starting and coming in that second half of the season. I love those 3 guys. I think Dan Moore is a startable guy, but I would rather get somebody else in his spot, and we definitely need another center because Mason Cole is not a good snapper. Cole could be a good blocker, but not a good snapper, and he's had his moments this year too. So look at those 2 offensive line spots. So offensive coordinator, get the right guy. quarterback you want to try and bring Mason back to compete, and you want to get at least one veteran quarterback in here to compete. Have an open competition, be honest, and let the right guy start. Don't just go with Kenny just because you think you have to, because he was a first-round pick, and don't just go with Mason because he was the better of the three last year. Bring those two both in, let them both compete. Bring a third veteran in, release Trubisky, bring a third veteran in, even draft a fourth guy later in the late round, 6th, 7th round quarterback, and let those four guys all compete honestly and start your best guy. Coordinator, quarterback, and shore up those two spots, especially at center and possibly at Dan Moore's tackle spot, and see what you got for next season. Tell me in the comments below what are your three biggest things on offense you want to change. Do you think I was right about the positions, or do you think I was wrong? Do we need more help elsewhere? Tell me in the comments below, and please like, share, and subscribe this video. I'll bring you guys a defensive one next week. We'll get into some special teams. We'll get into more potential targets for quarterbacks and for coordinators in the future. If you like these, go Steelers. I'll see you soon.